Hello, I'm Erica, and this is my September wrap-up. So, if you haven't seen it yet, you might want to go check out my September TBR. It's gigantic. I am participating in Bookish September, which is basically just a month-long readathon that's just read as much as you can. Just read tons of books. And it has a couple challenges and stuff, so I tried to kind of work into those. It has an Instagram challenge, which is super fun. And then I'm also participating in 2 readathons, the hashtag Yearathon readathon and the Ribsat round 6, because I love the Ribsat. So yeah, which is read your book self-a-thon. Sorry, I like to say Ribsat. It's fun. Anyway, so I set a TBR up of 14 books for the month. 14. Reading 14 books. Yeah, technically reading 13, well, technically reading 12 full books, because one of them was when I was in the middle of, when September started. And the other one, I'm trying to just make progress in. So, by the end of this, I hope to tell you that I've made a lot of progress on A Game of Thrones, because I'm currently reading A Game of Thrones. But I'm reading it, I get it from the library, I get 3 weeks with it, so I'm reading it for 3 weeks. But I'm reading it kind of in between other books, because I can't bring myself to just sit down and read all. I think I have 400 pages left in it. I don't know why. I think it's just because it's so dense. But I am working on A Game of Thrones, so I'm hoping by the end of this wrap up here, because I like to film them as I finish books. By the end of this wrap up, I will tell you I have made it like so far in Game of Thrones, or maybe I have finished A Game of Thrones. That would be kind of awesome if I actually finished it by the end of the month. But anyway, so 14 books. So let's see how I do. So far, 1 down. Ding, 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 ding. So there's 13 left on my list now. So I read Scarlet, first one I read. This is the second book in the Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. If you do not know what the Lunar Chronicles are, you have not watched a lot of BookTube. No, if you don't know what it is, the Lunar Chronicles is like a loosely based retelling of fairy tales, where kind of like a specific fairy tale character is taken in and put into this crazy world, which is, if you imagined that we had life on other planets, and we're communicating with such life, and they were people, they just different kinds of forms of a people, really. I mean, like, they're weird people, but they are definitely like a different form of a person. It's not like they're little green things coming out, although they have like special powers and stuff like that. But anyway, in this case, Luna is where these other people are from. The Lunars. Lunar Chronicles, yeah. Which is basically their loon, essentially. And then, like, they come to planet Earth, which is now re-inhabited. Not re-inhabited, that's not the word. It's like reorganized, I guess. There was like a crazy world war that happened, and all these places came back up, like New Beijing, and Paris is still there, but it's a different kind of Paris and that kind of stuff. So the Lunar Chronicles centers around a lot of characters. I don't know how to explain that. Lunar character, like the first one in the series is Cinder. That focuses on the character of Cinder, which is your Cinderella character. And she is fantastic, and I love her. She really is. I love her. She's such a fun character. She's a cyborg. And what else can I tell you about her? She's 16. And stuff. I can't really tell you much else about her without. I'm trying to do this as spoiler free as I can. So, I did just finish this one. I loved this book. I loved it so much. I loved Cinder. I like 5 stars in it, like, and then some. I loved Cinder. I thought it was such a good book. I thought it was such an interesting, brand new way to use well-known like fairy tale characters and just kind of do a whole new thing with them, and that was cool. So I was really looking forward to reading Scarlet, which is the second book. And I picked it up and I started to read it, and I read it in a matter of days. And I literally, I was sitting there last night when I was reading it, and I was probably, I had like 40, 50 pages left. And I was kind of at that point where I was getting tired enough that it was like, I might want to put this down because I can't read this in the dark. Like I can't. That's the only thing that I love about ebooks personally, aside from the fact that you don't have to hold like a bulky book. Like this is a pretty big book, but this is also a floppy book. Flopsy. Yay, so it's easy to hold. Um, but when you have like currently I'm reading a Game of Thrones, but I'm reading it on my tablet because as an ebook, an almost 800-page book is a lot easier to hold than it is when it's an 800-page book that you're holding. And I like the fact that like if I'm half asleep, I can turn the light off and still read my book because you could do that with a tablet. You cannot do that with, at least not me, because you see the light right now. That's the light I have in my room. I have no option for less light. It's this or it's dark. So yeah. Anyway, love this. If more than 5 stars were available, sure, I'd give this like 15 or so. It's so good. It's just so, it was captivating. I was like instantly just, I could not put it down. When I got to like midway to the end, I like I actually had somebody come in and say, weren't you gonna go to bed like an hour ago? I'm like, I can't yet. There's things happening. It's so good. I love the characters we were introduced to in this, which are Scarlet and Wolf are two new characters in here. Yeah, Scarlet, if you can't tell by the thing, she's your Red Riding Hood character, so of course there had to be a wolf, right? You know? I love the character of Wolf. I think he is just really fascinating as a character. I was really excited by the short story that's included in this. So right now, Game of Thrones so far, this here monthly. Maybe we should do this every time I film a wrap up. I'll tell you where I'm at on Game of Thrones. So I'm currently, let's see, where are we? Currently on page 310 of 796 of A Game of Thrones. That's where I'm at right now, and I really like it. I really do. I think Game of Thrones is. I can understand why it has such a following. It's very dense, and there's so much to it, but I really enjoy the fact that it feels like medieval literature, I guess is the way to put it. It's in that thing. It's so dense and it has so much, but it has so much that's good, and it feels so different than other stuff that's out right now. It reminds me of medieval literature. Medieval literature is really dense, and in my let me just geek out for a minute. Medieval literature is extremely dense. Medieval literature includes like a lot of your kings and queens and good and evil and gods and monsters and that kind of stuff. And I feel like A Game of Thrones really fits into that vein in that it has like a lot of things, a lot of fun things, a lot of good things, and a lot of just family dynamics and a lot of your court dynamics, your what do I want to say? Like your royal court stuff, because they talk about, obviously, I mean, it's called like Game of Thrones and for a reason. There are thrones, kings and queens involved, and mayhem and craziness and wolves, awesome wolves. I really think dire wolves are cool. Like I can't I want to watch the show just to see what they did to make the dire wolves. Do they look as cool on the show? I'm not watching the show yet. I'm determined not to watch the show until I've read at least the first book, if not more than one. I just don't want to spoil the series on myself. I don't want to spoil and find out like all the people that died and then be like, oh. The next book I read was The Book of Speculation by, oh no, Erica, wow, Erica Swiler. So that's 2 books on my TBR done so far. That works. It's pretty good. The book is, it's written beautifully. It's mysterious. It's got a darker theme to it. It's really weird at the same right. I don't actually want to give much of a synopsis because I feel like it's one of those books you should definitely go into blind and just let it unfold. It definitely is a story that kind of creeps into you. It at times reminded me so much of The Number 23. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, but it's a movie about a man who has an obsession with the number 23 after he reads a book, and it just, the vibe of it felt the same as like that, and it just, it creeps into you and it kind of gets to you and it hooks you. And I read it really quickly. I found myself like not able to put it down, a lot, like not wanting to, putting it down, and then instantly being like, I really want to finish that book. I gave it 5 stars. I thought it was just beautiful, just a beautiful story, and haunting and interesting, and it just weird, just a weird book. But I just really enjoyed it. So I definitely recommend it to anybody that likes like just kind of a story that's different, because it's definitely not something I'd read before, and it's not a story I had even a setting that I'd heard of, that I'd read before, though. There are books that are about some of the same things, but just not in that way. I liked it a lot. I thought Erica Swiley did a really good job, and I would definitely be interested in reading anything else she puts out. I believe this is her debut. She's written like short stories, but I'm not sure that she's written anything else. But I will look into that. Yeah. So the next book I actually read on my way down to. Can you see all the spots in it? Do you see this? Yeah, you can see. See all those little holes in it? That's from dancing. Yeah, because I don't really know how to sit still. I don't know if you've noticed from my videos, but I sway. I move around a lot. I do this. I don't really know how to sit still. It's not like one of my things. So if you give me live music and I like that music at all, I'm going to be dancing. And the show was Augustana, who's one of my favorite bands. Iconopop, which they were awesome, and they are like dancey goodness, and One Direction. So it was awesome. It was a really good show. So on the way down, because it's a good 2.5, 3 hour drive to get to where we were staying and the venue and all that good stuff, I finished The Giver by Lois Lowry. So this is my first ever read of The Giver. This is basically a classic I think almost everybody's had to read in school at some point. And I don't remember ever being assigned to read this. I know it was a choice to read it at one point, and I know a lot of people in my school read it, but I had never read it. For those of you who don't know, The Giver is the first in a quartet. And it is about a community that lives basically in black and white. I think the basically just, and the easiest way to say it is like, if you imagine black and white. Oh my god, do you remember Pleasantville? That might work, but it's like living in black and white and then suddenly seeing color. It's that kind of journey that's being explained. And actually, to be completely honest, that is actually what happens in this. Like there's a whole thing about seeing color. But they live in a community where they strive to all be exactly the same. The community itself is run by a bunch of elders, and the elders decided the best thing is for there not to be any kind of differentiations, and everybody be the same. Every family has one boy and one girl. Everybody has a profession that's chosen for them when they're 12. They all have like the same first birthday. They don't celebrate like birthdays because they don't want anybody to be singled out. You don't mention people's, individuality or anything. There is no individuality, essentially. And it centers around a boy named Jonas and his like family unit and that kind of stuff. And he goes to his ceremony because he's 12 and he's going to learn what his next thing in life is going to be, and it's going to be the receiver of knowledge or memories receiver of memories. That sounds right in my head. I said knowledge and then I think it's memories. Anyway, he's going to be a receiver anyway. So that's what his new title is, to be the receiver. So he has no idea what that means. He doesn't know what that is. And he goes to find out about it, and it's basically all the things that happen when he finds out what his actual job is, what it is he needs to do, and everything that's going on in his community that he never really realized. And it was a fantastic read. It ended very abruptly, and I was amazed, and it was so good. It was so interesting. It was so captivating, and just, I mean, like, rip your throat out, like, exciting at times. I mean, I was reading it like really like just flipping, like could not put the book down, didn't want to put the book down. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. I right now am scrambling to see if my library has Gathering Blue, which is the next one, because I really want to read it now, ASAP, right now. I was told by somebody else that read it that all 4 books really tie everything up. That the story really continues really nicely through it, and that by the end, like, you get a nice little tied up story. But like, if you stop in between, you're just left kind of wanting more. So I'm trying not to. I'd like to continue to read it. I really liked it. I did. I finished it in the car and I was like, what? And then I moved on to Game of Thrones while I was on vacation, because I actually started to read, and this might not be a popular opinion, but I started to read All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr, because I have heard nothing but good things about it all around BookTube. And it sounded like such an interesting story, but I started to read it. I got about 15 pages in, I think, and I just couldn't get into the story. And I don't know. I think it was more the style of it. It may have just been my mood. I don't know. But needless to say, I didn't finish it. I was borrowing it from the library, and it was on its like last day of having it anyway. And I didn't like try to renew it or anything. So I don't know if I'll try to read it again in the future. I may, but currently that's a do not finish for this month. This book, by the way, was the book of the month pick for one of the book of the month picks for hashtag a yearathon, and I did finish it during hashtag a yearathon, so yay me, because I read it during that and everything. So awesome. And that was really my only goal through hashtag a yearathon, was to at least read The Giver. If not The Giver, just The Giver, then also Lion Witch in the Wardrobe, because they're both part of banned book series, and that was the theme. And I said I would update you every time I read a book, so I did read a Game of Thrones, because I had that available through my library while I was traveling, and so I read another 40, 50 pages on it, I think. Again, Game of Thrones is super dense, so 50 pages feels really good. I'm like 45% of the way through the book now, so I'm almost halfway. I'm almost halfway through a Game of Thrones. Today is the 13th of September. I have completed 3 books. 1, 2, 3 books. I've completed 3 books. I did not finish 1 book, and I have read additional pages in Game of Thrones. So I am doing pretty good on my September goals so far. Feeling good. Look how pretty. Look at Button. Button. Aw. Sorry, Liam. I held him upside down. This was a very good show, I just want to say. And I may have bought a shirt. I did. I like merch. Do you like merch? I love it. I kind of love merch. I have a lot of those. The next book that I completed in September was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which is the second book in the Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. If you read it in the intended order that C.S. Lewis wanted people to read it in, which it actually says right in the book. I said that to somebody in a group. One of the groups sentiment on Goodreads is reading these, and when they started it, I said, well, The Lion, the Witch, Wardrobe was actually not number 1; it's number 2 according to C.S. Lewis. And they were like, oh, but Goodreads has it this way, and I was like, that's great, but C.S. Lewis, who actually wrote it, wanted people to read it this way. And they asked me where I heard that, and I said I read it in a book somewhere. Anyway, but it actually says in the beginning of this, right here. So this is like in the little info thing. Although The Magician's Nephew was written several years after C.S. Lewis first began the Chronicles of Narnia, he wanted it to be read as the first book of the series. HarperCollins is happy to present these books in the order in which Professor Lewis preferred. Boom! Right? Personally, if the author tells me to read it that way, I'm going to do that, because they know better than I what order in which things should be read. Kind of like, and this is totally unrelated to books, but I'm a really big like movie girl too. I love movies. I love TV. I'm pretty big on like all entertainment field things. But anyway, I love movies, and I happen to be like absolutely. I love the Fast and Furious franchise. I love all of those movies. I think they are fantastic. They're really good action films. They have really beautiful people in them. I mean, really, no matter what your pleasure is, just there is someone for you to see. I'm telling you. I love it, and I love cars. I've always really just loved cars, and the cars in these are fantastic. And The stunts and stuff are great. I just really love the Fast and Furious franchise. And the way that they were released is not the intended way you should watch them if you want to understand them. Like, you actually have to take the third movie that was released, which is the Tokyo Drift movie, and watch it as the sixth movie in the series. And then all of a sudden, the series makes sense. No joke, because they decided to. They did the first and second film and the third film. And then the next director, because different directors have done like trilogies of their own. It's really weird, but anyway. So the next director said, you know what, let's fill in here, because between the second and the third movie, there's really no explanation as to why the hell we're in Tokyo and all this kind of stuff. So they did the next three movies to fill in the spot in between there. And then they did like whatever. So it works out that if you watch Fast and the Furious and then Too Fast, Too Furious, and then you watch what is numbered 4, 5, and 6, and then tag on Tokyo Drift as the last one you watch before the newest one, which was Furious 7, you actually understand the whole freaking thing. It makes so much more sense. I watched it out of order. Well, in the order it was released. I was totally confused for like 2 movies after, like for 4 and 5. And then I watched it again and watched it with that one last before number 7, and all of a sudden everything made sense. And I love it. You should totally watch it that way. If you've never watched the whole like franchise and you want to, just stay Tokyo Drift until you get in between number 6 and number 7. So it's like Fast and Furious, I think, if I remember right, is number 6. And then Furious 7 is number 7. I think that's right. Anyway, back to the book. So I read this one. I love Narnia. Narnia's fantastic. Like, really, I mean, it's fantastical anyway because it's a fantasy. But I just really, C.S. Lewis had like, it's awesome. And I love the way that he writes because, well, specifically he writes the, I don't know, I've never even known anything else by C.S. Lewis other than Narnia. You want to give me something? You can. I love that. And I'm looking for, I think it's in here. I was looking for a little quote in here that's like the C.S. Lewis quote you hear all the time, and I thought it was right in the beginning. So, but anyway, so this series in general, he wrote it for, and it says right here, Dear Lucy. Lucy is his niece. No, his goddaughter. Lucy is his goddaughter. It's why one of the characters' name is Lucy. When he wrote Narnia, he wrote it as a story for his goddaughter. Just because. And he wrote it in, so the way that it's written in a storyteller style, meaning that when you read it, there are points where it's like, oh, and you may think that this is crazy, but I'll explain it to you, and it just sounds like he's speaking to you, like you're having a conversation with C.S. Lewis, and he's telling you a really awesome story, and I love that. I absolutely love that. I think that's so true to just original storytelling and stuff like that. And when you sit around a campfire even, and like you start babbling about stuff and you tell each other like fun little stories. I love stuff like that. I love stuff like that because I feel like when it's written in that kind of a form and that kind of style, that it draws the reader in a way that's totally different, and it reminds me so much of childhood because it's written that way, because that's how children's books are written. The ones that are meant to be read aloud are written that way so that you kind of pause and you engage your audience essentially. And I think that's probably why it's so easy to blow through them too. Like, really, it takes me just a couple of days to get through these. And I was reading this while I was reading A Game of Thrones and one other book, actually. I was reading 3 books at once. But I really, really enjoyed this series. I'm definitely going to continue on. I liked this movie, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I did not like the other 2 movies that were released at all. I thought they were kind of crappy. They were boring. They weren't fun. Not as good as the first one. The first one was good. I liked the book better. I liked the first book. I thought it was really funny and really interesting, and there was a lot in there that you were like, oh no, ah! And this one, because I'd seen the movie, it did spoil the book in that, like, I knew some things that I wouldn't have, obviously, if I had read the book first, which I'm sure is kind of, anybody that hasn't read it yet, I think a lot of people saw The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. But had I read this first, it wouldn't have been as spoiled. There are things in here, though. If you don't know already, the Chronicles of Narnia were banned, and they weren't banned like once. They've been banned like several times through the years, like since they were first written. And I am a person that doesn't understand censorship and banning and that kind of stuff. I just don't get it. I don't understand why you can't just be trusted to make your own decision, like why somebody else has to do that. Although I do kind of understand, I don't know, I understand the general laws and stuff, so I guess, I don't know, but censorship just seems weird to me. If you're gonna have freedom of speech, why do you have censorship? Whatever. I digress. That's my thing. But I kind of understand where it might be coming from, because this entire series was released as a children's series because he wrote it for a child, and it's hilarious because there's a point in this where he says something about how the adults in your life, something about like the adults in your life won't understand this, or will think that it's wrong if I tell you what this is, like if I explain whatever this is. So it's like he was already like preparing, like I get it, you're gonna yell at me. But from what I understood, originally it was banned due to a parallel in Christianity or something like that. Like the Catholic Church had a problem with it, or just some church had a problem with it. There was a parallel thing in there, and there are parts in The Magician's Nephew where some of the stuff that was told, it kind of like was very Genesis-ish and stuff, but that's not really something I can understand. I mean, I'm Catholic. I was raised Roman Catholic, and I am a practicing Catholic, and I have my beliefs, and I believe my things. But I didn't see any kind of like weird, like I was like, this is not sacrilege. Like I wasn't reading the book like sacrilege. You can't read this. Like it wasn't like that. So I don't know. Again, though, I don't understand banning anyway. In this book, there is an entire section. So if you have a problem with children being used as slaves, don't read this book. There's an entire section where like the witch, because Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. The witch, okay. She basically just uses a child as a slave, and I'm reading it laughing and going, now I get it. I can understand how some parent over here went, oh hell no, I'm not gonna have my kid read a book like that. So it's interesting. It's kind of like when I finished The Giver. It was like there are some things that happen there that are very, I mean, they're disturbing anyway, because it's supposed to kind of trip you out about how they run their thing, but there are like some things in there that I was like, okay, I can kind of see why a parent might freak out about this, if you're that kind of parent, I should say. I feel like I should elaborate. The kind of parent that like flips out on things like that, thinking, I guess like a sheltering parent, a type of parent that would be like, oh no. Example, my sister, who is lovely, and I love her, but she's a polar opposite for me, and we've been that way forever. My sister is a parent because I have a lovely niece that I mention all the time. When my niece was younger, she has watched things like The Simpsons and stuff like that, but they borrowed the movie Love Actually. If you've seen Love Actually and you love it as much as I do, go ahead and like this video, because really, Love Actually is one of my favorite movies. You know how there's that whole thing in the beginning of Love Actually? There's that couple that are the stand-ins for a movie. You know what I'm talking about, right? Right? I don't want to give too much away in case you haven't seen Love Actually, because there's actually a really cute couple in there. But anyway, so everything in Love Actually is adorable. Like, it's just one of those movies. And that, well, save a storyline or two. Not as adorable, but still, you get what I mean. My sister had an issue with it. They had sat down to watch that, and that's how it started. And she instantly was like, oh my god, my niece can't watch. Like, she was just went off on how her daughter couldn't watch that or whatever. And I was like, really? You let her? Because she let her watch The Simpsons. But that's me, and Family Guy for that matter. That's just me. Again, differences of opinions. I am always open to other people's opinions. I am very open-minded that way, but I do have my own. I am extremely opinionated. Hence why I have a booktube channel, so I can babble about books and my opinions about those. But I have got to say, if you've not read the Narnia series and you like fantasy in any shape or form, I feel like a lot of fantasy must be just derived from C.S. Lewis. Like, there's just things that you read and it's like, oh, the world is so nice and it's fun. I just kind of want to go to Narnia. Like, I get it now. I understand the fandom. I am part of the fandom. I am with you. It is awesome. I really like it. I really like this cover too. In a previous one, when I finished The Magician's Nephew, and during the book haul for my library book haul back in June, I showed like a whole bunch of books because I've been collecting the Chronicles of Narnia in separate books. So I had like, there's 7 books in the series. I have 7 different versions of Chronicles of Narnia because it's been reproduced so many times that like there's there's so many different versions of it anyway. But I really like this one. So this is HarperCollins. It said. And really, if you're gonna buy them, it's a Harper Trophy, an imprint of HarperCollins, and they were copyrighted in 2002. So in 2002, apparently they redid this and they put these ones out. And if I was going to keep these, which I don't intend to right now, I already got rid of the Magician's Nephew, so if I was keeping them, I'd have to buy them again. But I would say, if you wanted a copy of this is a beautiful cover. I mean, can you see that cover art? That's gorgeous. I really like it. I just screwed up my white balance completely. And the cover is totally like, it's the White Witch's house, so it's all the little figures and stuff, which if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. They're stone figures. She has basically a stone garden in front of her giant castle-y house thing. So yeah, awesome book. I gave it 4 stars instead of 5. I'm not really sure why I was compelled to give it 4, not 5. I don't even know. I gave it 4 stars. Like, I instantly was like, 4 stars. And I was like, why didn't I give it 5? I really liked it. Because I did really like it. But I don't know. I was compelled to give it 4. So I did. Yeah. Anyway. So that was an awesome book. I did say every time I finished a book, I would say where I was on Game of Thrones. So Game of Thrones, I did have to return to the library a second time. And I'm not done yet. I'm on page 588. That means I only have like 180 pages left. Something like that. It is awesome, and I love it, and I want to finish it, but I have so many other books to read right now, so and right now I currently have 8 books out for my library, 3 on my tablet, and 5 in physical form, so I am working on reading those first. When I have read the ones that I have on my tablet right now, I will get Game of Thrones again, and I'm going to finish it out, because I really do like that book, and I definitely want to read more in that series, because I'm really interested to see what George R. R. Martin does with the characters. I'm very interested to watch the show, but I'm not sure when I should watch the show, like, at what point it won't spoil me anymore, I guess, because I'm really worried it's going to spoil things for me, like, and I don't want to, because I'm really enjoying the book. So I'll decide eventually. I have it on my Netflix, but it's at the end of my giant list of Netflix, so, I'll watch it eventually. Yeah, so I'm doing good. So that puts me on another book. I think I've read 5 books out of my 14 on my list, and Ripsat did start today. So I kind of deviated from Ripsat a little because I really wanted to read the next book in the Giver series. So I'm working on that. But I am going to pick up my stuff on my shelf too this week. I'm determined. Okay. That's it. That's what I got.